Hello everyone, do you remember me? I'm sorry it's been so long since I've done an update, but there's not really been many people with any additional words they need to know or anything they've added. There's a few little things, but I'm not going to be able to put those into a video unless it's one very short video explaining what you call, what Americans call a moon bounce, the UK calls a bouncy castle. So I've come up with a slightly different video this time. This is going to be a video explaining some of the misconceptions about Britain and about the UK generally. The first one I'm going to deal with is the fact that a lot of people think that Britain is a country. It's not. While Britain or Great Britain does refer to the general area, neither of them refers to a country. Britain is a general term for Wales, Scotland and England collectively, while the British Isles also includes Ireland, Northern and Republic. England is often the most incorrectly named in this way, and English people are often referred to as British. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which differentiates between the part of Ireland that's governed by England, hence the suspension of the Northern Ireland government in 1972, and the Northern Ireland Assembly in 2002, from the Republic of Ireland, which is a self-governing nation. While calling an English person British is technically correct, it's quite unspecific in the way that calling a Canadian person North American would be, only Britain is not a continent. It is very awkward, but it's something that a lot of people tend to get wrong for some reason. Another misconception, especially by Americans on this one, is that British people drink beer warm or room temperature. I've heard this myself a number of times and I've yet to discover where it comes from. If you walk into a British pub or a bar and order it any way other than cold, it would raise a few eyebrows, just like anywhere else, to be honest. In fact, the most popular lager beers in Britain tend to be of the extra cold variety, and this applies to most bitter beers and ales as well. Nobody likes warm beer, the British included. I think it's quite possible that when you're in America, the temperature's warmer, and so when you get a drink it tastes colder, and vice versa when you're in the UK it might be cooler so it tastes warmer. Possibly, I don't know. Having said that, most Americans like their beer super cold, so an English beer might appear to be warm in comparison, but it is still cold. Chilling beer too much, like Americans tend to do, can actually damage its flavour, so you don't want to really chill it, otherwise it's going to ruin it. Another one is that the British have bad teeth. Do you remember the big book of British smiles in The Simpsons? This one is commonly referred to in comedy shows and poking fun at Britain, but because of that, a lot of people believe it's fact. While a percentage, just like any other country, will suffer from dental problems, the standard of oral hygiene is generally very high. In fact, the shortage available of NHS dentists, NHS being the National Health Service, the shortage of them, having trouble to actually get one, is a constant issue in England. Just like anywhere else in the world, a person with bad teeth is considered slightly gross exception, and not the rule in Britain. Basically, most people have good teeth. You're going to get the odd person that has bad teeth, but we don't all have bad teeth. I think we can thank Austin Powers for that one. God Save the Queen is the national anthem of England. No, it's not. That's right, I said England, not Britain. God Save the Queen is the national anthem of Britain, but not England itself. Despite this, even English people will insist that the song is our national anthem. It's not the case though. Wales has its own national anthem, and so does Scotland and Northern Ireland. What sets England apart is that its national anthem is applied to the whole of Britain too. But that it doesn't actually officially have a national anthem at all. So what happens when, for example, England plays against Scotland in a game of football? We can't both use God Save the Queen for the opening, but this isn't a problem for Scotland, who can bring out their own anthem. But England's choice will vary. Common stand-ins for God Save the Queen, you know, when it can't be used, are things like Land of Hope and Glory, and I Vow to Thee My Country, or Jerusalem, all of which are popular contenders for becoming the official anthem, along with a few other options. Sadly, none of them are official, and neither is God Save the Queen, which is only official for Britain in itself. People might be interested to know that God Save the Queen is the official anthem of New Zealand, which is one of the very countries in the world which has two anthems of its equal status. New Zealand's other anthem is God Defend New Zealand. Misconception. The Queen is the ruler of Britain. Did I hear you say, but she is the ruler of England? I'm sorry, you're still wrong. The monarchy has not had political power in Britain for a long time. Each British country has its own parliament and is ruled politically by their own prime minister, who would be the equivalent of the president, I imagine. While the monarchy does technically rule Britain, it doesn't have any power outside of ceremony. The Queen does not have power in Britain any more than she does in Canada or any of the other Commonwealth countries, all of which are technically ruled by the Queen. But she does not, however, have power in any of them. The British monarchy exists today mainly for ceremonial and tourist reasons, to be honest, but still, God save the Queen. Now this one is actually a hot topic, especially in the States at the moment. That Britain has free universal health care. Oh, the good old NHS, the National Health Service. Sadly, it's as commonly unknown to people outside of Britain that the NHS is not free, nor will it cover any illness or injury. The NHS is paid for through taxes and donations and will only provide certain approved services or treatments. While it's true that emergency treatment is almost always free of charge, treatment for long-term illnesses or injuries is almost always charged. Certain drugs will be provided for certain illnesses, but if your illness or the drugs and treatment require you is not on the approved list, you will not get it from the NHS. It's always a controversial issue in Britain. You generally have to pay for your for any medication that you're prescribed. You still have to go and pay for it. But the NHS is also not available to non-British citizens except in the case of emergency. Even then, the emergency must have taken place within Britain. Basically, the NHS is a good thing. We do have to pay taxes in order to get it free, as it were, but it's a good thing in the sense that if you hurt yourself, if you're feeling really, really ill, you don't need to worry that you haven't got the money to go and get sorted out. You can just go to your hospital or go to your doctor, and you'll be seen, and it won't cost you. And that's always something that's good for the heart and good for the soul. Oh, that it always rains in Britain. When people think of Britain, we all tend to think immediately of bad weather, we see rain clouds and storms and the bitter wind and general misery. However, compared with many other countries and many other parts of the world, Britain's got quite pleasant weather, really. During the winter, the average temperature can become what Americans would probably consider bitterly cold, which is between 0 and 6 degrees C. I do it in degrees C. If you want to do it in degrees F, go and look on Google. But the average summer temperature ranges between 20 and 30 degrees, often higher, in fact. Britain comes 46th in a chart of worldwide average rainfall, falling well behind such countries as New Zealand, which is 29th, and even the USA, which is 25th. But I'm not sure the reason Britain has such a reputation for bad weather, probably because winters tend to be longer than summers in Britain, and most artwork of Britain tends to depict the weather based on expectation. And people likely sort of dwell on a period of bad weather, even if the weather's generally good. But no, it's not always rainy here, and it's certainly not always foggy. I'm not sure why Americans think London and places are always foggy, but no, they're not. Come and see, it's nice. We are not the biggest tea drinkers in the world. We come way behind Turkey, India, China, all those places. The UK drinks tea as much as coffee, to be honest, these days. It's just a normal drink, and we don't sit around with crumpets either, which I can't describe them to you. Look them up on Google or Wikipedia. But basically, you'd have those as often as you'd have a bagel or something. People don't sit around drinking tea and eating crumpets all day long. And also, tea is a word in the north of England for the evening meal. So when someone invites you around for tea, that might be where there's a misconception. they're in fact inviting you round for a meal in